Hello, good teachers and parents, homeschool parents. I'm thinking about you teaching with your children or your students on your very best day. You've got just the right materials, and you and your kids are together. You know that they're really getting it. It's fun. It's a lot of fun, isn't it? In fact, it has worked so well that you think maybe in a couple of days, let's try this again. Let's use it for something, or let's have a quiz or something to practice what we've got. And to your great astonishment, you find out that they didn't get it at all. They don't even hardly remember that you did it. And you think this is you. You think this is your fault. But it isn't your fault. This has to do with something quite apart from you and your kids. And instead, it has to do with the chemistry of the brain. About 15 years ago, the research began to show that when there is stress, the neural impulses from the input, which is the five senses, but particularly the visual and the auditory for classroom learning. When there is stress, these channels are blocked by stress chemicals. And these chemicals pretty much remain in place. It becomes worse, of course, when there's chronic stress. Now, you might say, well, I'm not that stressed. My kids really don't have that much stress. But this research is surprising. It shows us that there are many stresses that we don't even realize. The buildings that we're in, the foods that we eat. Of course, kids come to you with all sorts of stresses from home. Maybe somebody's had an argument, maybe there are money troubles, maybe you as teacher have any of these things. And when that happens, whether we like it or not, the stress chemicals lodge and remain in our neural channels to memory. And so they will remain, unless, fortunately, there's a mechanism in our brains that can get rid of these stress chemicals and open the neural channels to the parietal lobes where mostly memory is stored. And this has to do with pleasure chemicals. The research has shown that when pleasure chemicals enter your body, you unblock the neural channels to remembering. And then you begin to remember, and your students begin to remember. There are various sources for these pleasure chemicals. One which is common to all of us, we might have a runner's high. When we have physical activity, intense activity, endorphins and similar pleasure chemicals unblock the neural channels. You may have read that landmark book some time ago, Spark, where a school got a grant in a low-performing academic area to add physical activity to their curriculum, morning, after school, and in between. And they found that without changing teaching methods or curriculum or books or anything, their academic performance went way high. Of course, the author didn't attribute this to stress chemicals in the brain, but I think that it is. Has to be. It's not so easy, though, for most of us to provide that sort of intense activity all day long during school, but there is another way. The research shows that arts activities also provide the pleasure chemicals that unblock the brain. We're talking any of them: visual arts, music, dance, theater. Whenever we engage in arts activities, we produce the pleasure chemicals. And that's so lovely because we can use those to teach with as our pedagogy. Now, most of us will say, yeah, I know, but I'm not very good at art and I don't have music training. I'm not so experienced in dance. My gosh, no. However, fortunately, there are easy ways to incorporate the arts integration, as you've probably learned in your teacher training, with your teaching without having to be an expert. In my recent book, Brain Friendly Teaching, if you're interested in the science, it briefly and in a friendly way explains it. But the most part of the book is about how you, as a simple everyday teacher, can use arts integration to teach with. In visual arts, music, theater, and dance. It doesn't require much expertise. You can just follow the plug and play lessons. You don't have to have heavy training, and you don't have to buy a lot of things. I've designed the lessons that if they require materials, you can use just what is available throughout your district for free for you as a teacher. I have a sense that this might change your academic outcomes in a big way, but I have a better idea. It is about having a joyful participatory classroom. So you and your students end the day feeling happy. They remember their work with you, their years with you, with great joy and pleasure.